Shabbat Shalom. Our scripture reading for today is Revelation chapter 17, verses 12 and 14. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Adonai of Adonai, and King of kings, and they that are with him are called, and chosen, and faithful.
Shabbat Shalom, family. Our selection today, soon and very soon.
Dying there. We are going to see the King. We're coming from every nation. We are going. No more dying there. We are going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah. We're going to see the King. Hallelujah.
The oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And above all things, have favorite love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication, and all uncleanness, or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as become saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you up on earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23 and verses 20 through 21. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Lithonia, Georgia. Today we're going to deal with the lamentation of the leaders. Now, excuse me, we may look at this and think that a lot of times we see, the ultimate leader or the head. We'll think about Moses, we'll think about Joshua, we'll think about Yahshua. But what we have to understand is that they're going to be captains of tens, 50s, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000. So there are going to be a lot of leaders that are going to have to share in the responsibility of dealing with Israel. And even when you go to a broader part of dealing with Yahshua, and those 144,000, they're going to have to share in the responsibility with Yahshua as the nations are being instructed. So you have many different levels of these leaders. You even have in a point where Israel is being restored, and he says, I'm going to separate the wives and the husbands apart while he's restoring and putting Israel back in the order that we're supposed to be in. So we have a lot of different levels of things that are going to take place. Now, when we deal with those leaders, before we can lead, we must first learn to follow. We saw this with Moshe. Yahweh knew what he was going to do with Moshe. So what we may look at in his life as a problem, this was a situation where he was having to be under somebody else and learn how to deal with leading the flock of people. Joshua was directly under him. We're talking about every time he gets ready to go and present himself to Yahweh to get instructions, Joshua's there too. So Joshua is learning what to do, what not to do. When we get down to King Saul was a leader that the children of Israel asked for, but was not someone that Yahweh had prepared for. So they got an unprepared leader, and it was a disaster when they received that unprepared leader. Yahweh was training King David in the very things that he was suffering. That was his preparation. Even having to care for these sheep who could not look out for themselves, he was being trained as a leader going through that, and he was being trained having to deal with the assaults of King Saul. So some of the things that we're going to encounter, we may not look at them as beneficial at the point that we're going through them, but they're beneficial to the ultimate job that Yahweh has for you. The problem is you don't know what that ultimate job is. So we go kicking and screaming the entire way, and you find out later on that he was preparing you the whole time. You're kicking and screaming, and he's preparing you for the ultimate job. The job that you have right now might just be the job that you're supposed to have at this level. And he's using that to train you for the one that's going to happen at the next level. But because we don't know that, we kind of have a little bit of disdain toward our God, because we think that the things that we are encountering are unfair. We believe that he must just not be seeing us correctly. Maybe he doesn't know, how dedicated I've been. Maybe he does not see me. The problem is he sees way more than you. He not only knows what you're doing, he knows what you're going to do. And that's the part that we have to understand, that we have to be prepared for that. So we're going to begin today's sermon in Jeremiah chapter 1. Jeremiah chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 1 through 19.
Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 1. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, of the priests that were in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of Yahweh came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Yehudah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Yehudah, on to the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Yehudah, on to the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month. Then the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying,
Now, first thing you have to understand, it says, until the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month. The first thing you have to understand is being a leader when things are going wrong is incredibly tumultuous. Everybody want to be the coach when the team winning. All right? Nobody wants to be the coach when the team losing. So before you get into anything else, understand that they're taking an L. Okay? And what happens is the people lash out whenever something doesn't go their way. And all of that is going to come to the leader. But understand, there's more than one leader. There's captains of 10, there's captains of 50, there's captains of 100, they're captains of thousands. You're going to have to deal with when Israel gets ready to lash out at you when something doesn't go right. Go ahead.
Verse 5. Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. And before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you. And I ordained you a prophet unto the nations.
All right. Point number 2. A lot of times we pick what we want to do. We come in and we say, I want to be in the media department. Some people say, well, I want to be on the greeting team. Let me tell you something. Some people didn't get to choose. Do you see any part in here where he had a choice in the matter? Before I formed you in the belly, before I knew you, and before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you. You already been set apart for my use. I don't care what you think, feel, and believe. I don't care what your aspirations in life are. Well, I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to be a football player. Yahweh, you tickleth Yahweh. He laugheth at your desire. For he has already anointed you and sanctified you for the purpose that he has for your life. He might let you sing a few times. He might even let you play some ball somewhere. But when he done, you're going to go, all right, I'm tired. I done seen enough of this. Now come on over here and do the job that I have sanctified you for. Go ahead.
Then said I, Adonai Yahweh, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child. But Yahweh said unto me, say not, I am a child, for you shall go to all that I shall send you, and whatsoever I command you, you shall speak. Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with you to deliver you, says Yahweh. Then Yahweh.
Now, what we have to understand right there in dealing with Israel. Be not afraid of the looks on their faces. Let me tell you something. If you say even the smallest thing that Israel don't like, we will mean mug you to death. Imagine going into a town full of people and telling them Yahweh is pronouncing judgment upon you. What you think they're going to look at you like? The first thing that don't come across right, we'll look at somebody like they don't deserve to be in our presence. And it says, speak not, for I am a child. This is a strange generation. These days, it'll be the children looking at you like you don't deserve to be in their presence. The first time you say something they don't like. Then what happened if judgment was really being placed upon them? What you think they gonna act like? Well, be ready, because your turn coming. Go ahead.
Then Yahweh put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And Yahweh said unto me, behold, I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have this day set you over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down and to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant.
A lot of times we want a leader, we don't want this. See, I have this day set you over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out, to pull down, to destroy, to throw down, to build, and to plant. We would say there's no way that person is blessed of Yahweh. Because we want to hear somebody say that we are more than conquerors. Yahweh ain't mad at us. He is exceptionally pleased, and it don't matter what we've done, we are already forgiven. That's what we want to hear. That's not what he was sent to do. So what kind of energy you think he gonna receive? Go ahead.
Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Yirmiah, what seest you? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. Then said Yahweh unto me, you have well seen, for I will hasten my word to perform it. And the word of Yahweh came unto me the second time, saying, what seest you? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. Then Yahweh said unto me, out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, says Yahweh, and they shall come, and they shall set everyone his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against all the cities of Yehuda.
Now, the people don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear that bad things are coming toward them. And Israel has a tendency to kill the messenger. They believe that if they kill the messenger, somehow the message gonna die. Go ahead.
And I will utter my judgments against them, touching all their wickedness, who have forsaken me, and have burnt incense unto other gods, and worshipped the works of their own hands. You therefore gird up your loins, and arise, and speak unto them all that I command you. Be not dismayed at their faces, lest I could confound you before them.
Now, you are not supposed to be confounded at the looks on their faces, because you're going to see some looks. Israel gonna give you some of the nastiest looks you ever did want to see as soon as you say something they don't like. And believe you me, they're not liking this. Why does he go back? He started with this. Why he go back to, hey, don't you be affected by the look on their face. Sometimes we don't even know we're looking at somebody nasty. We done got so accustomed to mean mugging. We think it's normal. Go ahead.
For, behold, I have made you this day a defense city and an iron pillar, and brazen walls against the whole land, against the kings of Yehuda, against the princes thereof, against the priests thereof, and against the people of the land. And they shall fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you.
They shall fight against you. They are going to fight against his servants. Be ready. Go ahead.
For I am with you, says Yahweh, to deliver you.
And they shall fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you. That don't mean you're not going to be affected. See, there's many levels of fighting against you. They can fight against you by just being disrespectful. They can fight against you by sowing discord among brethren. They can fight against you by showing that they don't respect your authority. Let's go to Matthew chapter 23. See, we know loud rebellion, but there's quiet rebellion too. Sometimes it's actually worse. Matthew chapter 23, and we're going to start that at verse 23.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought you to have done, and not to leave the other undone. You blind guides, which strain at a gnat, and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they're full of extortion and excess.
Now understand, now he's talking to the leaders of the temple when he's going into this tirade here. Now, he's not very well liked while doing this job. The biggest mistake we make is to believe that everybody is going to be happy with the job that Yahweh sends us to do. That can be a fatal mistake for you. There are things that I know that Yahweh was leading me that I didn't want to do, because I knew it was going to be problematic. But Yahweh will send you to do a problematic job like it ain't nothing. I mean, that's what a servant does. Go ahead.
You blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanness. Even so you also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you're full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore, you be witnesses unto yourselves, that you are the children of them which killed the prophets.
He says, you be witnesses unto yourselves that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Go ahead.
Fill you up in the measure of your fathers. You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify.
Listen, wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets, wise men, and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify. A lot of times people desire to be in leadership, but they don't understand what they're asking for. Go ahead.
And some of them shall you scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you that killeth the prophets, and stoneth them which are sent unto you.
You see that? While everybody is doing their Israelite pep rallies, I want you to understand, O Jerusalem, you that killeth the prophets, and stone them which are sent unto you. So Yahweh sends somebody to go and deal with Israel to try to coerce them off their position. What does Israel do? Stone them. Because they're not saying nice, sweet, soft words. Go ahead.
How often would I have gathered your children together, even as a hen gathers her chickens under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, you shall not see me henceforth, till you shall say, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Adonai.
All right. Let's go to Romans chapter 10. And although there may be some who desire to be leaders, there are some that have already been called for such the job. You just don't know it yet. Romans chapter 10, and we're going to read verses 1 through 21.
Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Elohim, but not according to knowledge.
Now, this zeal for Elohim that is not connected with knowledge causes some issues. This is what happens when this will cause somebody to go off and do some things and they believe that they are right. They have a zeal for Elohim, but their knowledge is not in the right place. See, having had a teacher, I've lived this situation where I had a zeal for Elohim, but my information was not right, and my elder had to come back and check me. He said, I respect your zeal, sir, but your information and how you dealing with that and why you dealing with it ain't correct. So he had to cut me, and then he had to educate me. But he let me know, I don't have a problem with your zeal. I need your education to match the zeal that you have for your Elohim. This is what causes someone to go out and do some things, and they'll swear that they're doing good while they have insulted 8, 9 people in the room and don't even know it. They have a zeal, but their knowledge is not in the right place. Go ahead.
For they being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness.
Right. If it was me, I'd do it like this. I'd do it like this if it was me. For they being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness, they're going about to set up their own. See, if I had this, I'd do it like that. They don't see Yahweh in the midst. They see the people whom Yahweh is using, and they think all of the decisions are coming from them. They don't think Yahweh is in the mix at all. Go ahead.
Have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim. For Yahshua is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believes. For Moshe described the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which does those things shall live by them. But the righteousness which is of faith speaks on this wise. Say not in your heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is, to bring Yahshua down from above. Or, who shall descend into the deep? That is, to bring up Yahshua again from the dead. But what saith it? The word is near you, even in your mouth and in your heart. That is, the word of faith which we preach. That if you shall confess with your mouth the Adonai Yahshua, and shall believe in your heart that Elohim has raised him from the dead, you shall be saved.
This is why at every baptism the question is asked, do you believe that Yahshua the Messiah died for your sins? If you don't believe, we ain't going in the water. Go ahead.
For with the heart man believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation.
Right, but we have a problem with certain levels of confession. Even as we are to confess our sins that we have committed against our brothers, to go and apologize. We have a real problem with confession because we don't like acknowledgement. Go ahead.
For the scripture says, whosoever believes on him shall not be ashamed. For there is no difference between the Yehudi and the Greek, for the same Adonai over all is rich unto all that call upon him.
Right. But we read in Romans 2 that there was a path for the Jew and there was a path for the Gentile. It's not the same path. See, we let bits and pieces of partial readings help us to believe that there's this one path that leads to salvation. No. Israel has a different path, and yours has more things in it. Go ahead.
For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Adonai shall be saved. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent?
How shall they preach except they be sent? We read in Jeremiah, he says, I knew you before you were formed in the womb. I sanctified you. I called you for this job. So there's some that Yahweh have called, and there's others who have called themselves and then called Yahweh and told them about it. Go ahead.
As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Adonai, who has believed our report? So then, faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of Elohim.
Right. Faith comes by hearing, but not all who have ears hear. Go ahead.
But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the end of the world. But I say, did not Israel know? First Moshe says, I'll provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation I will anger you. But Isaiah is very bold and says, I was found of them that sought me not. I was made manifest unto them that asked not after me. But to Israel he says, all day long have I stretched forth my hands unto a disobedient and gangsaying people.
All the day long I have stretched out my hands unto a disobedient and gainsaying people. Understand that as they are trying to reach Israel, they're getting their fingers bit off. And it's something that I want to read here so that we can get just a little bit more of an understanding of what Yahweh has basically put his leaders into. I want you to read this article here. This is about domestic incidents. See, these are things that the police particularly hate. Go ahead.
Domestic incidents are highly dangerous for police officers, experts say. The two New York police officers who were shot, one of them fatally, inside a Harlem apartment on Friday, were responding to a domestic disturbance call. One of the most dangerous circumstances for police, experts say.
Now, why is that? See, you got to understand that a domestic situation follows no logic. Okay? When people are responding to a robbery, it's real. It's you can tell, all right, these are people who got robbed and these are people who were doing the robbing. All right? You are able to assess where the biggest part of the danger is going to come from. Even when you're dealing with a criminal, most criminals, whether they be thieves or drug dealers, they have one thing in common. They don't want to get caught. Domestic issues are totally different. In a domestic situation, the individual will give their name first and last and proceed to kill everybody in the room and sit down and eat a sandwich waiting for the police to get there. Police don't like these kind of situations because it defies logic. In a domestic situation, you can go to help an abused person. Then the abuser and the abused gather together, both attack you to neutralize you, the help, then turn around and go back to assaulting one another as soon as you have been neutralized. Police don't like these. First responders don't either. This is a dangerous situation where a person will be sitting right beside you and they've been calm for the last 30 minutes. And all of a sudden, they pull out a pistol and start going off on everybody in the room. They don't like these. Keep going.
Officer Jason Rivera died from his injuries, while 27-year-old Wilbert Mora remains in critical condition. According to data from the FBI's Law Enforcement Officer Killed and Assaulted database, 503 officers nationwide were feloniously killed between 2011 and 2020. During that period, 43 officers were feloniously killed while responding to domestic disturbance or domestic violence calls. According to the FBI, 14 officers were feloniously killed when they encountered a domestic incident after arriving at the scene. The 43 officers who were killed while responding to domestic disturbances or domestic violence calls account for roughly 8.5% of the total number of officers killed between 2011 and 2020. Last year saw the highest number of law enforcement officers who were intentionally killed in the line of duty since the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. There were 73 officers who died in felonious killings in the line of duty in 2021. According to preliminary year-end data provided to CNN by the FBI, it was the highest total recorded by the agency since 1995, excluding the 9/11 attacks. The Friday incident unfolded as officers were responding to a domestic call at 6:15 p.m. in Harlem, officials said. A woman called 911 and reported she was having a dispute with one of her sons inside her apartment, said NYPD Chief of Detectives James Esaac. Shortly after, 3 NYPD officers arrived at the apartment and met the mother and another son. At some point, the officers were directed to a room in the back of the apartment where her other son, the suspect, was waiting, Essex said. The door swings open and numerous shots are fired, striking both officers, one fatally and one is here at Harlem Hospital in critical condition, Essex said.
The door swings open. They ain't open it. Before they can get to do anything, he takes care of this business. Go ahead.
A third officer shot the suspect, identified as LaShawn McNeil, in the arm and head when he tried to escape. Police said McNeil, 47, was in critical condition at the hospital, officials said. Domestic violence incidents put police in unfamiliar ground. Several factors can make a domestic violence incident highly dangerous for responding officers, according to John Shane, a professor in the Criminal Justice Department at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. The first is that you are entering into someone's private domain and you're bringing a very public face to a very private matter.
So understand that now. I want you to remember some of these same things. Go ahead.
Shane told CNN. People's emotions are already elevated due to whatever dispute they're involved in, and now you're bringing the coercive power of the state. People are angry and angry to see you, knowing that there is potential to be arrested and incarcerated. Shane said officers are also on unfamiliar ground. unlike the other individuals who likely know the layout of the residence. You don't know whether there are any weapons in the house, so you're at a complete disadvantage. You are 100% on defense, while the other players are on offense, Shane added. Shane said the NYPD officers did not establish control over the situation as quickly as possible because the individuals at the scene were in different rooms rather than in one place. Many factors increased danger for officers. A 2017 research brief from the Dolan Consulting Group, authored by criminal justice researcher Richard Johnson, determined the likelihood of an officer assault while responding to domestic violence calls is greatest when the batterer is unemployed, intoxicated, resides with the DV victim, has just damaged property, and displays a hostile demeanor when officers arrive, and is least likely when these factors are not present. The research cites a study using FBI statistics to show an average of 4,194 officer assaults occur annually from domestic violence calls. Between 1980 and 2006, a total of 113,236 officer assaults occurred at these calls, and 160 officers died as a result of these assaults, the research says.
So we see that when it's a domestic situation, we're not talking about somebody trying to rob somebody who intentionally said that they were going to create or commit a crime. We're talking about situations where people's feelings are involved. When the feelings are involved, all logic goes out the window. So when a person opens the back room of their own house and starts shooting, do you think they thought they were going to get away? No, they didn't intend on getting away. Whenever you're dealing with somebody who don't intend on going home, you, my friend, are in the most dangerous position ever. When they say, oh, no, I'm dying today. When they say, I'm not going home and I'm not going to jail. Oh, no. You in a situation now. Go ahead.
While domestic violence calls may not be the most dangerous duty that officers face, it is inaccurate to say these calls are by any means safe, and it is therefore vitally important to work to understand the factors that increase risk to officers, Johnson wrote in the brief.
All right. So with that being read, I want to go and we want to read Deuteronomy chapter 17. So we understand what increases danger. See, when you know what you're dealing with, it's one thing. But whenever you're dealing with a domestic situation, there are always hidden variables. Deuteronomy chapter 17, and I want to read verses 8 through 13.
If there arise a matter too hard for you in judgment, between blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within your gates.
Matters of controversy between your gates. Go ahead.
Then shall you arise and get you up into the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. And you shall come unto the priests, the Levites, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and inquire, and they shall show you the sentence of judgment.
All right, so right off the rip then, Yahweh has charged his priests to deal with domestic incidents. Then you start to begin where the real lamentations are going to come from. Because when dealing with these issues, they defy all logic. You can be trying to mediate a situation between two individuals and both of those individuals turn on you. Go ahead.
And you shall do according to the sentence which they of that place, which Yahweh shall choose, shall show you. And you shall observe to do according to all that they inform you, according to the sentence of the law which they shall teach you, and according to the judgment which they shall tell you, you shall do. You shall not decline from the sentence which they shall show you, to the right hand nor to the left. And the man that will do presumptuously and will not hearken unto the priest that stands to minister there before Yahweh your Elohim, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and you shall put away the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear and do no more presumptuously.
So then we see now this ordination from Yahweh that the priests, the judges, they are having to deal with matters of controversy. So whereas in the street, they call the police, in the world of Yahweh, they call him the priest. So he has now been charged to deal with domestic issues. This automatically puts him in danger. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 22. And the police in danger, and they showing up with a strap. Alright? They not only got a strap, they got something in the trunk. They got the big stuff in the trunk. And they got a vest on. And they still might get caught off guard dealing with a domestic disturbance. Yet Yahweh, you begin to understand why Yahweh tells Jeremiah, don't be afraid. Why are you telling you don't be afraid? Because you're about to deal with some domestic disturbance. And I'm telling you, they on some different kind of stuff when they do what they do. Go ahead.
David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him. And he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men.
All right, so then we have, this captain. Understand, if there are 400 men, then they're lower levels of leaders as well. And even those lower levels of leaders are going to have to deal with the disdain that comes from your people. Go ahead.
And David went thence to Mizpah of Moab. And he said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, I pray you, come forth and be with you, till I know what Elohim will do for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with them all the while that David was in the hold. And the prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold, depart and get you into the land of Judea. Then David departed and came into the forest of Hareth. When Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. Then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, hear now, you Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? That all of you have conspired against me, and there's none that shows me that my son has made a league with the son of Jesse, and there's none of you that is sorry for me, or shows unto me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait, as at this day? Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of Yahweh for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine.
Now, he's saying that the priest, the one who's set to be the mediator between men who have controversy. Go ahead.
Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob, and they came all of them to the king. And Saul said, hear now, you son of Ahitub. And he answered, here I am, my master. And Saul said unto him, why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of Elohim for him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait, as at this day? Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, and who is so faithful among all your servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goes at your bidding, and is honorable in your house?
Now, you see how domestic issues have no reasoning. He has now accused the priest. The priest said, what are you talking about? This man with you. This man married to your daughter. What are you talking about? Go ahead.
Did I then begin to inquire of Elohim for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father, for your servant knowing nothing of all this, less or more.
The priest has no knowledge that he has a problem with Dawid. See, he himself has hidden his real dispute. Only the ones close to him know that he actually has a problem with Dawid. He's not publicizing that. Yet, he holds the priest accountable for knowing what's in his heart. Go ahead.
And the king said, you shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, turn and slay the priest of Yahweh, because their hand also is with Dawid, and because they knew when he fled, and did not show it to me. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priest of Yahweh.
See, at some point, somebody has to stand up and say, no, I'm not participating in that. But we still have our levels, because there's a part of saying, I won't participate, and then there's a part that says, I will not allow. Go ahead.
And the king said to Doeg, turn you and fall upon the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priest, and slew in that day 75 persons that did wear a linen ephod. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword.
Now, this is how ugly a domestic issue. Nobody's been robbed. Nothing has been stolen. This is a disagreement between two individuals. Look at all the people who are dying. Go ahead.
And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after Dawid. And Abiathar showed Dawid that Saul had slain Yahweh's priest. And Dawid said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of your father's house. Abide you with me, fear not, for he that seeks my life seeks your life. But with me you shall be in safeguard.
So, let's take an inventory of the casualties. There are two men in this altercation. There's Saul and there's Dawid, both of whom are still alive. Now, who's dead? All the priests whose job it is to minister between the individuals who have controversy. They are the only ones dead in this situation. The peacemakers are the ones who caught the sword. You begin to understand why Yahweh said, don't be dismayed at the looks on their faces. I got you. What was the look on the face? A look on the face can show you nothing but murder in its eyes. Once you've seen something before, you can look at it and say, oh, no. That wasn't just dislike. That was disdain. That will end in murder. You can see it in the eyes. There's a reason why Yahweh was warning him. These priests had done not one thing wrong. And not only them, everything attached to them. Dead. Why? Because somebody was unhappy with something, and he didn't even know he was dealing with the situation. He didn't even know that they had an altercation with one another. But it's their job to stand in controversy. So when people automatically say that they want to be leaders, I wonder if they understand these things. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 15. You know, I remember looking at my elder, you know, and saying, oh my God, how do you deal with all this betrayal from people that you've taught? And then he looks at me sad. And I can't understand why you looking at me sad. I'm talking about you. I didn't get that he knew. This cat don't even know he next. Yahweh, should I tell him? Should I tell him that he next on deck? Poor fella think he feeling sorry for me. You need to be feeling sorry for yourself. 1 Samuel chapter 15, and we're going to start that at verse 35. And I want to read that through 16 and 2.
And Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul. And Yahweh repented that he had made Saul king over Israel.
You know, when Yahweh has put you in a role to try and help individuals, here it is, Samuel is still mourning. See, sometimes even the lamentation of the leader doesn't make sense, because he understands what kind of individual Saul is, but he still mourns for him. Keep reading.
And Yahweh said unto Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel?
And, you know, Yahweh is sick of it. Why are you still mourning for him? Keep reading.
Fill your horn with oil and go, and I'll send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons.
Now listen to what Saul says.
And
what Samuel says. Go ahead.
And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me.
He know for a fact this man will kill him, yet he mourning for him. The very ones that you go out of your way to save are going to be the ones who are going to try to kill you. The ones you do the most for are the ones who done sized up a noose for your neck. Keep reading.
And Yahweh said, take an heifer with you and say, I'm come to sacrifice to Yahweh.
So Yahweh has to present an alibi so that his prophet will live, so that he can navigate through this domestic issue. That is just an issue between two men. But all these people are dying because of the issue between these two men. Let's go to Luke chapter 23. Now, if you remember, in a part of that, Saul starts also talking about his captains. How is it that none of you have told me that my son has made a league with Dawid? Understand now, those leaders were about to get it too. I hope you're paying attention that a lot of times when we say things about leaders, then you just pick the ultimate guy and think that the other guys are without problems. Oh, no. Saul was about to bring it to them too. Why y'all didn't tell me? Y'all should have seen this, know it wasn't right, and you should have told me. And the kind of individual that he was, he would have killed them for something that he supposed they should have known. So before you think this don't apply to me, because I'm not the guy in the front, I need you to think again. Luke chapter 23, and let's start that at verse 18.
And they cried out all at once, saying, away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas.
Away with this man, and give us the murderer. You need to know this about your people. Away with this man, release unto us the murderer. Go ahead.
Who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder, was cast into prison. Pilate therefore, willing to release Yahshua, spake again to them. But they cried, saying, crucify him, crucify him.
Crucify him, but release the murderer. And they know he did it. Go ahead.
And he said unto them the third time, why? What evil has he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I'll therefore chastise him and let him go.
So you have to understand, as Yahweh has put his priests in a situation to deal with controversy between men, he has given and put them in a domestic issue. That's singularly. He has also put them in the midst of a domestic issue between him and Israel. And that's in its plurality. You're not just dealing with one upset Israelite. You're dealing with thousands upon thousands. Go ahead.
And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. And he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired. But he delivered Yahshua to their will.
And I don't think we really understand the depth of what was done by allowing the murderer to go. We're talking about the real Leviticus chapter 16 scapegoat whole setup. Here it is. You crucify one, you killed that one, but you let the other one go. You let the murderer go and crucified the other one. See, sometimes when we are so deep in our feelings, we don't see that we are fulfilling Scripture. These are some of the most educated people about Scripture, yet they are fulfilling it and don't know that they're doing it. Why? Because their feelings in the way. Go ahead.
And as they led him away, they laid hold upon one Simeon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Yahshua. And there followed him a great company of people, and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Yahshua, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For, behold, the days are coming, in the which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bare, and the paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? And there were also two other malefactors led with him to be put to death. And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, and the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left. Then said Yahshua, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The very ones that you are trying to save are going to be the ones who attempt to take your life. Go ahead.
And they parted his raiment and cast lots. And the people stood beholding. And the rulers also with them derided him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if he be the anointed one, the chosen of Elohim. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him, and offering him vinegar, and saying, If you be the king of the Yehudis, save yourself. And a superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, This is the king of the Yehudis. And one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, If you be the anointed one, save yourself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Does not you fear Elohim, seeing that you are in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing amiss. And he said unto Yahshua, Adonai, remember me when you cometh into your kingdom. And Yahshua said unto him, Verily I say unto you, today you shall be with me in paradise.
And he said unto Yahshua, Remember me when you come into your kingdom. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 13. Zechariah 13, and I want you to start at verse 4. We're just going to read a couple verses right here.
Zechariah 14, 13.
13.
Four and 6. Verse 4. And it shall come to pass in that day that the prophets shall be ashamed every one of his vision when he is prophesied. Neither shall they wear a rough garment to deceive. But he shall say, I am no prophet, I am an husbandman, for man taught me to keep cattle from my youth. And one shall say unto him, what are these wounds in your hands? Then he shall answer, those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends.
Those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. If that ain't deep, I don't know what is. Your biggest stripes, your biggest wounds are going to come, not in the house of your enemy, but in the house of the very ones that you're trying to save. Those are going to be the ones that are going to try to put you up on the cars. Those are the ones that are going to try to put the nails in you. See, if it had been an enemy, we could understand that. We like to look at the situation of Yeshua and say, man, these Gentiles did such and such. Who offered them up? Who pigeonholed the Gentiles to the point where they didn't have any choice but to torture him? That was Israel. Israel put the situation and made it to where, all right, if you don't take care of this business, we're going to tell Caesar that you letting the mockery go on here. Now they pushed, because they gotta consider, okay, the people who are over me are going to say that I can't control my district. So they tied their hands. And they felt compelled. The man who was even talking about torturing Yeshua didn't even want to do it. It is written, it says, because of envy they delivered him. He knew it wasn't real. But nonetheless, if they keep going up the ladder, then I'm going to lose my position. He tries to coerce them. Okay. So you want me to let go Barabbas? Everybody know him, murderer. This man, what have he done? But when you're in a domestic dispute amongst family, do understand, these are all Israelites. This ain't coming from another nation. This not coming from another people. This coming from the same people. When you're dealing with a domestic issue, it doesn't have to make sense. Only hurt feelings. Keep that in mind. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 3. Jeremiah chapter 3, and we're going to start with verses 1 through 15.
Verse 1. They say, if a man put away his wife, and she go from him, and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? But you have played the harlot with many lovers, yet return again to me, says Yahweh.
Now wait a minute. Now, he says they say. He's already dealing with what's written in this word. Okay? If a man put away his wife and she go from him and become another man, shall he return unto her again? He said, no, you can't do that. That land is greatly polluted. He said, but you have done this to me many times. Now, he's sending a prophet to deal with this. Then Israel and Yehuda, these two nations, are married unto Yahweh. So not only does Yahweh put you in a domestic dispute, he puts you in a dispute between him and his wife. If you don't know no better, if you ain't never seen danger standing between a man and his wife, you don't know danger like standing in between a man and his wife. They both will get together and kill you. This is a very, very hard place to stand. The beauty is Yahweh not like man. Because man will turn around, use you to get his house in order, then proceed to kill you after he used you to get his house in order. I'm very thankful that Yahweh ain't like man. Nonetheless, this is a very disturbing place to stand in between a God and his wife. Go ahead.
Verse 2. Lift up your eyes onto the high places and see where you have not been lain with.
Now, he telling you to tell his wife this. Now, what happened, because you know, I've had situations, and my elder always told me, all right, now, when you have altercations with people, be careful about telling that to your wife. Because when you let the situation go, your wife not. Your wife gonna remember that time in 87? You remember that time in 87? Oh no, she's still dragging the sword, looking at that person, scraping it on the ground. Remember 87? What? Now you done got over it. See, I learned this when I was first dating. And little girl I was dating broke my heart. And the girl told me that my mama was attacking her. I said, not my mama. Get out of here. And then I turned around fast enough one day and I saw it. See, we had worked our issues out. But mama said, no, that's my baby. If she hurt my baby, she must remember 87. Done deal. She was not trying to let it go. And I had to see it with my own eyes. Oh. But then I had to take responsibility. I shouldn't have told her that. See, I told her my feelings when I was going through something. Then when I got over it, mama didn't. I got over it. Well, I'm in there sharpening her knife. Mama, what you doing? Getting ready for your girlfriend to come by here. What? She didn't let that go. Interesting. Keep reading.
In the ways have you sat for them, as the Arabian in the wilderness, and you have polluted the land with your whoredoms and with your wickedness. Mm-hmm. Therefore the showers have been withholden, and there has been no latter rain, and you have had a whore's forehead. You refuse to be ashamed.
Yahweh told you to go call his wife a hoe. Now, brothers will tell you to do something when they angry. Then when they make up with their wife, why you call my woman a whore? Bro, you told me that you what? This was your words. Yeah, but I ain't angry no more. Okay, keep reading.
Will you not from this time cry on to me, my father, you are the guide of my youth? Will he reserve his anger forever? Will he keep it to the end? Behold, you have spoken and done evil things as you could. Yahweh said also unto me in the days of Uzziah the king, have you seen that which backsliding Israel has done? She's gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there has played the harlot.
There has played the harlot. He said she done went under everywhere. She just spreading herself to everybody. And he telling you to go say it. Come on, leader. Keep reading.
And I said after she had done all these things, turn you unto me. But she returned not, and her treacherous sister Yehuda saw it. And I saw, when for all these causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away, and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Yehuda feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And it came to pass through the lightness of her whoredom, that she defiled the land, and committed adultery with stones and with stocks. And yet for all this her treacherous sister Yehuda has not turned unto me with her whole heart, but vainly, says Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto me, The backsliding Israel has justified herself more than treacherous Yehuda. Go and proclaim these words toward the north and say,
Go and proclaim these words. This is a very intimate situation, and you in the middle. Go ahead.
Return, you backsliding Israel, says Yahweh, and I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you. For I am merciful, says Yahweh, and I will not keep anger forever.
You have to understand something. People in general don't like another entity in between their situation because now somebody knows what all they've done wrong. Go ahead.
Only acknowledge your lawlessness.
Which is the biggest thing that we have a problem with. We'll lie for 30 years straight so that we don't have to acknowledge the things that we've done. We'll lie with a straight face. People will lie to you and you know they lying, and they know you know they lying. And they'll still look straight at you and tell that lie. Why? Because they don't want to acknowledge it. Go ahead.
That you have transgressed against Yahweh your Elohim, and have scattered your ways to the strangers under every green tree, and have not obeyed my voice, says Yahweh. Turn, O backsliding children, says Yahweh, for I am married unto you, and I'll take you one of a city and two of a family, and I'll bring you to Zion. And I will give you pastures according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding.
Now wait a minute. I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. They're not the kind of people who are going to turn around and tell you all the things that you like. They're not the people that's going to tell you how he's not angry with you, how he's happy with you, how you're more than conquerors. That's not the people that I'm sending to you. The kind of people that I'm going to send you are going to be after my heart, and they're going to tell you the truth. But how you going to feel about them? Jump to verse 19.
But I said, how shall I put you among the children, and give you a pleasant land, a goodly heritage of the host of nations? And I said, you shall call me my father, and shall not turn away from me. Surely as a wife treacherously departs from her husband, so have you dealt treacherously with me, O house of Israel, says Yahweh.
And these are the words that you are to proclaim unto his wife. Jump to chapter 5. And start that at verse 1. And you have to wonder now, okay, so he's having you say all these things to his wife. You got to put yourself in that situation. You say all these things, right? Let's say she does repent to her husband and they get back together. How's she looking at you when you come over? You think you're going to get a lot more dinner invites? Okay. Jeremiah chapter 5. And let's start at verse 1.
Run you to and fro through the streets of Jerusalem, and see now, and know, and seek in the broad places thereof, if you can find a man, if there be any that executes judgment, that seeks the truth, and I'll pardon it. And though they say, Yahweh lives, surely they swear falsely. O Yahweh, are not your eyes upon the truth? You have stricken them, but they have not grieved. You have consumed them, but they have refused to receive correction. They have made their faces harder than a rock. They have refused to return.
Right. Now, when the punishment doesn't yield a repenting response, then the punishment must be reinstituted again on a higher level. We don't understand that we're making the punishment more severe. Go ahead.
Therefore I said, surely these are poor, they are foolish, for they know not the way of Yahweh, nor the judgment of their El. I will get me unto the great men, and will speak unto them, for they have known the way of Yahweh, and the judgment of their El. But these have altogether broken the yoke, and burst the bond. Wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them, and a wolf of the evening shall spoil them. A leopard shall watch over their cities. Everyone that goes out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many, and their backslidings are increased. How shall I pardon you for this? Your children have forsaken me, and sworn by them that are no gods, when I have fed them to the full.
You see when we go off the deepest end, when I had fed them to the full. Same thing Moshe said. There will come a time when Yahweh has fed you to the full, you are going to transgress. He already knew the manner of Israel. Go ahead.
They then committed adultery and assembled themselves by troops in the harlots' houses.
Right. Go. You'll find a harlot house that they call a church on every corner, just like the liquor store. Why would a church be called a house of harlot? Have you ever just started to count how many different gods are worshipped there? See, Yahweh only allows the worship of him in his house. Consider, you can keep Valentine's Day, you can keep New Year's Day. New Year's is automatically dealing with the two-headed god Janus, which is why January is the beginning of their year. You can keep Christmas, which has nothing to do with Christ. All of these different gods are kept in the same place. If he then sets that aside as adultery, then how can it be anything but the house of a harlot? You have worshipped every god known to man in here. St. Patrick's Day come, the whole church in green. What are you doing? It can't be anything but the house of a harlot. We worship things we don't even understand. We don't know about no leprechauns. Why everybody in green? So how many more gods you gonna work? Who have you not been laying with? Easter is a fertility ritual. Bunnies don't lay eggs. Bunnies do reproduce fervently. Eggs are a symbol of reproduction. It is a fertility ritual. What God have you not served in there? How can it not be the house of a harlot? But we would think that's strange. How can you say that? That's harsh. I didn't say it, my God said it. But I realized that there was some God worship that I learned in some of those houses that even when I was in the street, then none of the thugs teach me that. Then none of the drug dealers teach me that. Then none of the players in the street teach me that. I learned that when I was in the house of the harlot. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 8. There were his fed horses in the morning. Everyone neighed after his neighbor's wife.
Everyone neighed after his wife. Do you know what neigh is? Do you understand? You know, when a dog is excited, you know it can't tell you it ain't excited, right? A dog can't pretend it want to play. There's a certain, there's a way. You just know. Okay? You just know. He said, that's you. After your neighbor's wife. Look at how easy it is to tell that this dog is excited. And Yahweh said, that's you. After her. But she belonged to him. What is wrong with you? Shall I not visit for this? And we think we hiding it. No, we broadcast it by the way that we operate. We'll know a certain person gonna be there, we'll put on a certain clothes. You know, one that might show our physique better. Yahweh said, I see you neighed after your neighbor's wife. Right. Go ahead.
Shall I not visit for these things, says Yahweh, and shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? Go you up upon her walls, and destroy, but make not a full end. Take away her battlements, for they are not Yahweh's. For the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda have dealt treacherously against me, says Yahweh. They have belied Yahweh and said, it is not he, neither shall evil come upon us, neither shall we see sword nor famine. And the prophets shall become wind, and the word is not in them. Thus shall it be done unto them. Wherefore thus says the Adonai Yahweh of hosts, because you speak this word, behold, I'll make my words in your mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them.
I will make the words in your mouth fire. But what's going to happen? Now, you understand that when these people are speaking, they're saying, thus say Yahweh. So, at any point, somebody can say, well, you know what? They're making themselves equal unto Yahweh. Go ahead.
Lo, I'll bring a nation upon you from far, O house of Israel, says Yahweh. It is a mighty nation, it is an ancient nation, a nation whose language you knoweth not, neither understandeth what they say. Their quiver is an open sepulchre, they are all mighty men. And they shall eat up your harvest and your bread, which your sons and your daughters should eat. They shall eat up your flocks and your herds. They shall eat up your vines and your fig trees. They shall impoverish your fenced cities, wherein you trusted with the sword. Nevertheless, in those days, says Yahweh, I'll not make a full end of you, and it shall come to pass, when you shall say, wherefore does Yahweh our Elohim all these things unto us? Then shall you answer them, like as you have forsaken me, and served strange gods in your land, so shall you serve strangers in a land that is not yours.
Now listen, wherefore does Yahweh our Elohim all these things unto us? You see how they actually believe that they have not transgressed? He said, oh, they're going to ask you this. You're going to have to show them why this has happened. Because they believe they've been standing in the right place. They don't believe that the things that they were doing were unjust. Go ahead.
Declare this in the house of Jacob, and publish it in Yehuda, saying, hear now this, O foolish people, and without understanding, which have eyes and see not, which have ears and hear not. Fear you not me, says Yahweh. Will you not tremble at my presence?
Do you not respect the power of Yahweh? See, there's certain things that we watch how individuals operate, and you say, you know what? You don't respect Yahweh's power. He said, will you not tremble at my presence? Go ahead.
Which have placed the sand for the bound of the sea by a perpetual decree, that it cannot pass it. And though the waves thereof toss themselves, yet can they not prevail. Though they roar, yet can they not pass over it. But this people have a revolting and a rebellious heart. They are revolted and gone. Neither say they in their heart, let us now fear Yahweh our Elohim, that giveth rain, both the former and the latter, in his season. He reserveth unto us the appointed weeks of the harvest.
All right, now, pause for a second, and a lot of times we're looking at this one man against this entire people. Now, divide that into captains of 10, captains of hundreds, captains of thousands, captains of 10,000. Now, this then becomes your individual duty to deal with the individuals that you have been charged with. Don't just see this as one man's issue. Because when one man does this, yes, he may be the guy at the top, but he can't deal with 80,000 people. He can't deal with 2 million people. That means he's going to hand that down to the captains. Then the captains are going to hand that down to the other people, and so forth, all headed by the king and the priest. All the other stuff comes under that. So you have a lot of organizations, they have captains of this, they got sergeants, they got all these things. But if at the top of that is not a priest, then their whole order is wrong. Go ahead.
Your lawlessness have turned away these things, and your sins have withholden good things from you. For among my people are found wicked men. They lay wait as he that set snares. They set up a trap, they catch men. As a cage is full of birds, so are their houses full of the sea. Therefore they are become great and waxen rich. They are waxen fat. They shine. Yes, they overpass the deeds of the wicked. They judge not the cause of the fatherless, yet they prosper. And the right of the needy do they not judge. Shall I not visit for these things, says Yahweh? Shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this?
Now, we could look at something and he says, okay, every man neighed after his neighbor's wife, shall I not judge for this? What we don't see is he is equally upset. Do you not judge between the fatherless and the poor? Do you not judge that? Shall I not judge for these things? See, we don't see that on the same level. We don't even see that as being an issue. So then there comes a time when there are forums and things that are to be held, and then we hold our peace and we don't say anything. Will you not judge these things? Oh, he holding you accountable. Go ahead.
A wonderful and a horrible thing is committed in the land. The prophets prophesy falsely, and the priests bear rule by their means, and my people love to have it so. And what will you do in the end thereof?
It says the prophets prophesy falsely, and the priests bear rule by their means, and the people love to have it so. Why? They've coerced the priests to say the things that they like. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 32. Let's see what the prize is for being obedient unto Yahweh. The prize for men, that is. So you got a man prize and you got a Yahweh prize. But let's read about man's prize. Jeremiah 32, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5.
The word that came to Yirmiah from Yahweh in the 10th year of Zedekiah, king of Yehuda, which was the 18th year of Nebuchadrezzar. For then the king of Babylon's army besieged Jerusalem, and Yirmiah the prophet was shut up in the court of the prison, which was in the king of Yehuda's house.
So what he get as a prize for all his obedience is prison time. But everybody swear that they will be an amazing leader. People believe that they have been amazing leaders in the past. Here go a good leader. He in cell block 4. Go ahead.
For Zedekiah, king of Yehuda, had shut him up, saying, wherefore do you prophesy and say,
what you tell me the truth for? Go ahead.
Thus says Yahweh, behold, I'll give this city into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall take it.
Listen, so Yahweh will cause you to go to somebody who's way more powerful than you and cause you to say some things that's going to activate their feelings. Go ahead.
And Zedekiah, king of Yehuda, shall not escape out of the hand of the Chaldeans, but shall surely be delivered into the hand of the king of Babylon, and shall speak with him mouth to mouth, and his eyes shall behold his eyes. And he shall lead Zedekiah to Babylon, and there shall he be until I visit him, says Yahweh. Though you fight with the Chaldeans, you shall not prosper.
Right, and we've gotten to the place where the only prophecy we want to hear are the ones that say we're going to be rich or we're going to own a business. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 10. Let's show some of the weight that Yahweh places on those leaders, and it is going to flow from the top down. So the heaviest part is put on the top, but then that weight then still flows down to the other captains of 10,000s, thousands, hundreds, 50 and 10, all the way down. Leviticus chapter 10, and we're going to read verses 1 through 7.
And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before Yahweh, which he commanded them not. And there went up fire from Yahweh, and devoured them, and they died before Yahweh.
All right, so the Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, all right, they offered strange incense. Yahweh has spoken and has burnt them up. Okay, go ahead.
Then Moshe said unto Aaron, this is it that Yahweh spake, saying, I'll be sanctified in them that come near me, and before all the people I'll be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. And Moshe called Mishael and Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said unto them, Come near, carry your brethren from before the sanctuary out of the camp. So they went near and carried them in their coats out of the camp, as Moshe had said. And Moshe said unto Aaron,
All right.
and unto Eleazar, and unto Ithamar his sons, Uncover not your heads.
Wait a minute. Moshe says unto Aaron, all right, the father. Then unto Eleazar and unto Ithamar his sons. Those were their brothers. Uncover not your head. Keep going.
Rend not your clothes, lest you die, and lest wrath come upon all the people. But let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which Yahweh has kindled.
Now, because of the position, you don't get to sit here and cry. Yeah, but that was my brother who got burnt up. My brother just got killed. Yeah, I know. You better not take your head covering off. Yeah, but this was my son, Yahweh. I know you better not mourn. Go ahead.
But you even got to look at Moshe's position, delivering the message. Those his nephews.
Exactly. He got to talk to his brother about his sons. You bet don't uncover your head. Man, that was my boy. What are you talking about? Them were my boys. What the job say? See, this is where folk claim that they're leaders until the situation, when the rubber hit the road, then we find out, oh no, all of a sudden we want to step back. Go ahead.
And you shall not go out from the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, lest you die. For the anointing oil of Yahweh is upon you, and they did according to the word of Moshe.
You shall not go out of the house. Now, this is a very, very important statement. In the midst of family turmoil, you do not go out. So I want to read something that I call being about their father's business. Now, let's say a man is going through something, and to get himself together, he separates himself from the congregation. What happens to those works that he was charged with? Either they go undone, or someone else has to step up and perform those tasks. When a man has stepped away, where does his significant other stand in that moment? Most of the time, the woman separates herself with her husband, which also leaves those duties undone as well. So now there are no works being accounted unto that house. The house has cut itself off from the ointment of healing. This very concept explains why Yahweh adds to the houses of his leaders. When a leader goes through something, he can't just take time off. Whatever pain he feels, he has to feel it right there in the midst of the congregation. If the leader is married, his spouse must go through issues in the midst of the congregation as well, because those jobs that they are charged with must not fall. Now, the next point, herein lies why Yahweh would add souls to a man's house. When the common man who has no leadership qualities in him disappears, the spouses of those individuals who are about what they are about will disappear as well. These jobs will then fall to the ground. The man who has true leadership qualities and teaches them to his house, though he falls, his house will not stop working. Though he is absent, the souls of his house are ever present, because the leadership qualities that are well taught don't need you to be present for them to exist. So when Yahweh adds to a house, it is directly related to the business he has been charged with, not to the fulfilling of the flesh. So if a man adds to his house, it is imperative that he understands what is expected of him. And if he is found unprofitable, he must pay with the very substance that he has gained. Now, we have to then think about the Miriam situation. Now, when Miriam was punished by speaking against Moshe, she was given 7 days outside the camp with leprosy. Now, leprosy can be healed, but it's contagious. Just by making it contagious, that made sure that Miriam wouldn't have any help. She had to go through that punishment herself. You have to understand what happens when you receive help. Let's say we don't read about anybody in the family going out with Miriam. Nobody else went to console her. She had to deal with that punishment on her own. She had to carry that weight on her own. By default, when you receive help, the punishment has to be lengthened. You are not carrying the weight by yourself. If the weight was given to you to carry for 7 days, but you then get 4 or 5 other people to help you carry the weight, then the weight has to be increased by 4 or 5 times by the number of individuals that you got to help. I don't think we understand Yahweh like we think we do. It is imperative that when we call ourselves leaders, or that we have led, that we understand, get in his book to find out how he deals with the leadership, not how we dealt with leadership in some kind of corporate America scheme, because that means absolutely nothing to Yahweh. Yahweh has his own set of rules and a hierarchy, and you have to deal with the order that he set up. And it's very much so different than when we deal with something out in the corporate world. Those people will show respect unto you because they check depend on it. When you're dealing with Yahweh's people, it's a difference between when somebody has to be there and when somebody wants to be there. But let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Psalms chapter 55. You know, when you talk about, dealing with the charge that Yahweh gives you and then the punishment that comes behind it. There were we ended up having to do some things at my brother's funeral. And I told my family, I said, look, I'm gonna be in trouble. And they said, why? I said, because some of my family has never seen me in that light. Automatically got rebuke from it. Now, because so many of my family members say, oh my God, that was wonderful. You did a wonderful job, blah, 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 blah. So then I had one family member to call and say, how wonderful of a job I did, and ask, hey, is it all right if I call you from time to time? I said, sure. A day later, his son calls me. Now he's angry that his dad wants to talk to me and decides that he's going to try to reteach me the message that I taught at the funeral. Now he seeketh the quarrel with me. I told y'all I was going to be in trouble. And I couldn't figure out what is his issue. Then I found out, because his father had said some things good about me, he then figured it was his job to degrade me. So then he comes and he makes this phone call. And the phone call was so strange, I put it on speaker so the rest of my family can hear it. I said, y'all got to hear this. This dude believes that he's so intelligent that he's insulting me, and I don't know I'm insulted. I had to explain to him, hey bro, I really do this. I really hear you, right? And all that from doing what Yahweh sent you to do. Just because Yahweh sent you to do it don't mean you're not going to get rebuked from it. You need to understand that. And if you're trying to avoid every possible situation of a problem, you're never going to be an adequate servant for Yahweh. Because you're going to keep trying to avoid this. I don't want to do that. You're going to avoid this. You're going to avoid that. You're going to become unuseful. I knew from the get-go, I'm going to face some trouble from this. And that was just the beginning. There's others coming. Go ahead, bro. Psalm chapter 55. And let's start that at verse 1.
Give ear to my prayer, O Elohim, and hide not yourself from my supplication. Attend unto me and hear me. I mourn in my complaint and make a noise.
I mourn in my complaint. I am lamenting. I am presenting lamentations toward you. Why? Go ahead.
Because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked, for they cast lawlessness upon me, and in wrath they hate me.
Right. In wrath they hate me. You have to understand that there's so many individuals that may smile in your face, but they really hate you. They hate what you stand for. Go ahead.
My heart is sore pained within me, and the terrors of death are fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling are come upon me, and horror has overwhelmed me. And I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then would I fly away and be at rest.
Right. If I had wings like a dove, I would separate myself from this foolishness. But some of that foolishness was accounted unto you. Why? Because it's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you better. Go ahead.
Lo, then would I wander far off and remain in the wilderness. I would hasten my escape from the windy storm and tempest. Destroy, O Adonai, and divide their tongues, for I've seen violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go about it upon the walls thereof. Mischief also and sorrow are in the midst of it. Wickedness is in the midst thereof. Deceit and guile depart not from her streets. For it was not an enemy that reproached me.
If it was not an enemy that reproached me, go ahead.
Then could I have borne it.
I could have dealt with it if it was an enemy. You expect wrong to come from your enemies. What you don't expect is for the wrong to come from your family and friends. I could have dealt with it if it was an enemy. Go ahead.
Neither was it he that hated me that did magnify himself against me. Then would I have hid myself from him. But it was you.
But it was you.
A man mine equal.
A man mine equal.
My God and mine acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together and walked in the house of Elohim in company.
Check that out. That means it's somebody you went to church with. We took sweet counsel together and walked unto the house of Elohim in company. If it was an enemy, I would have been able to deal with it. But it wasn't an enemy. It was you. A man mine own equal, a man whom I called a friend. That was who magnified himself against me. Go ahead.
Let death seize upon them, and let them go down quick into hell. For wickedness is in their dwellings and among them. As for me, I will call upon Elohim, and Yahweh shall save me. Evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice.
Now, this is where the troubles help you get closer unto your Elohim. See, when you're going through something, you pray a little bit more. See, you don't pray evening, morning, and noon because everything going good. No. When you hitting your knees that frequently, there's some issues going on. But those issues is causing you to get closer to your Elohim. Go ahead.
He has delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many with me. Elohim shall hear and afflict them, even as he that abideth of old. Because they have no changes, therefore they fear not Elohim. He has put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He has broken his covenant.
Right. There's a covenant of peace between men that automatically exists. If I meet a stranger on the street, there is an automatic covenant of peace between me and that man. Why? Because he has done absolutely nothing to me, and I have done absolutely nothing to him. We have a covenant of peace that exists between us. Now, once somebody does something, that covenant of peace is broken. But then you have to look at and examine this situation. Why did you come against your brother and he hadn't done anything to you? You broke the covenant of peace. See, I can have more peace with a man that I don't know because we have not had an altercation. Whereas there's another individual who I've known for 10 years, but I know that's not a peaceful individual. I have seen the dealings of this individual. We will not have peace because they have proven themselves to be an unpeaceful person. There is no covenant of peace there because it has been broken time and time again. You recognize what that is. But that does not exist with the man whom you met yesterday. There's an automatic covenant of peace until somebody breaks that. Go ahead.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
Uh-huh.
But war was in his heart.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter. Sometimes this is how we get reeled in, by soft-talking snakes. It speaks real calm and smooth and soft. Now, we don't understand that they are words of war. Go ahead.
His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords.
Uh-huh.
Cast your burdens upon Yahweh, and he shall sustain you. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved.
Right. When you take care of Yahweh's business, you don't have to go out looking for who is out doing these things against you. He will bring it right to your doorstep. The things that'll end up being revealed to you, you ain't got to look for them. You ain't got to slither in the grass and try to figure. You ain't got to sneak and be up late at night and double back. You ain't got to do none of that. Take care of his business. And when it's time for that to be dealt with, he gonna drop it right there on your doorstep and say, okay, this malicious situation has matured, and now it is time for you to deal with it. Go ahead.
But you, O Elohim, shall bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I'll trust in you.
I will trust in you. And let that be the mindset that we try to walk in. Because when you're talking about all of the things that Israel are going to have to deal with, you're going to have various leaders. We're not just going to have one leader. We put this thing in our head that there's one leader and he's the only one that's going to have to deal with this stuff. We'll read it and it goes right over our head because that don't apply to me. I'm not the leader. Once he put 9 under you, 10 under you, guess what? Every last bit of it applies to you. There's not just going to be one leader. So prepare yourselves and prepare yourselves to deal with yourselves. Because go home and look in the mirror and see you and imagine commanding 1,000 of those who you looking at. That's all we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.